Today's video, we're going to be going over 7 things that instantly changed my mind about moving to Cambridge. So we can say it's 7 things you must know before moving to Cambridge. But this is just my experience with it. Yours could honestly be totally different.
So if you're relocating to Boston,
What's up, everybody? This is Joe, and we are the Turco group right here in Boston, Massachusetts. Make sure you tap that subscribe button, click the little bell so you're notified every time we do a new video. Honestly, we get so many people calling who are relocating here, and we absolutely love it. If you're thinking about moving, relocating, or coming here to stay, make sure you give us a call, shoot us a text, send us an email, or even send Paul Revere. However you want to get a hold of us, we got your back when you're moving to Boston. Let's jump into our 7 things you need to know about Cambridge. If I was on YouTube daydreaming about what it would be like to live in my fair city, and where all those older folk that remember Car Talk on NPR is from, then I have all the things that would have been useful in me deciding. I'm not here to tell you where to go, but I can tell you about what I'd have loved to know beforehand. Really. First thing you should know about moving to Cambridge is that it is home to 2 of America's most prestigious universities, Harvard and MIT. And it exudes a certain intellectual quirkiness. Every September, the fall semester brings hordes of college students from all over, and our small town bursts to life. So if you're young at heart or just want to feel the energy of the young crowd a couple times a year, this is a great vibe. Just be careful driving on Starrow Drive, where inexperienced students drive their moving trucks into bridges. You'll want to note that the clearance height is just 10 feet. Let's just say it's not uncommon to see a lot of traffic backups from accidents and people getting stuck this time of year. But once they kind of get settled into their dorms, there is something inspiring about being surrounded by, some of the world's greatest minds, people that in the future you'll be hearing about in headlines. The universities also offer a plethora of activities, such as lectures, shows, and exhibits. You can spend an entire afternoon at Harvard's Natural History Museum or check out the latest technology at one of MIT's halls. The universities definitely bring a unique cultural aspect to the town. So if you're here to stay or just a few days, you want to check out that part of our great town of Cambridge. If there's any iconic neighborhoods in Cambridge, it's definitely Harvard Square. This neighborhood is full of historical buildings, coffee shops, restaurants, fun little boutiques, as well as theaters and performance spaces. All of this and more brings millions of people to the square each year. Harvard Square has kind of gentrified over the years and has a lot more chain establishments than it used to, but the square still has a kind of bohemian feel. It's, a great place to enjoy buskers and street performers, or just grab a cup of coffee and people watch. There is almost always some type of inspired student out and about looking to perfect their craft, in front of the public. And, sometimes it's great. Sometimes there's a lot of laughs to be had. The second thing you should know about Cambridge is it's very green. And I'm not just talking about the oak tree lined streets or the abundance of parks. I'm talking about actual sustainability. They want to make the world green and clean. The environmentalist types are all about promoting initiatives such as fuel efficient vehicle charging stations, community composting of garbage, in order for, us humans to not be too heavy on our planet's resources. There's even Neighborhood Solar Initiative, which provides more panels so we can produce electricity at home instead of using fossil fuels, obviously, which fights climate change. Cambridge is a great place for a lot of different things like cyclists and walkers. The one-way streets make it easy to navigate without getting stuck in too much traffic. But if you want the exercise, there are plenty of parks with scenic views. It's just really one of the most bike-friendly cities in the entire country, and therefore also very green. That leads me, right into the third thing you need to know. I mean, in Cambridge, we love being outdoors and are all about an active way of life for body and mind. And there's something to do in every season. So yoga in the park during the warmer months and ice skating during the winter months. Also, the town being nestled right along the Charles River, it's the perfect backdrop for a lot of different activities. We mentioned biking already, but with paths weaving along the river and through the city, it's also perfect for rollerblading and running. There are a ton of runners. Also, with direct access to the Charles, there's, a lot of sailing and rowing with, a lot of different things. You can even do yoga on paddleboards on the Charles. But the Charles River Path is also one of the greatest runs in the United States, if you're a runner. The river divides Boston and Cambridge with paths on both sides of, Boston and Cambridge. The path runs from Science Park in Boston all the way to Watertown, Waltham, and Newton. The heart of the path is from Science Park to Harvard University through the JFK Bridge. The best way to experience running on the Charles River, though, is to, plot a big loop, run across the bridges using, one of the many different bridge options to kind of cross back over. And, I'll be honest, I'll drop a quick favorite for running gear, Heartbreak Hill. I mean, it's a thing. And the Heartbreak Hill Running Company is where you need to be if you're going to be part of the Cambridge running family. Get all your sneakers there, get all of your equipment. There's a couple other things that you really need to be aware of. The first being kind of some of the hidden gems like Shades Mill. Realistically, what you need to know is it's been one of the best kept secrets in Cambridge. It's about 7.5 miles of trails that provide, plenty of outdoor activities for like running and hiking and cycling. And it's just amazing. So you heard it here. Now let's jump to our fourth thing you need to know. I mean, Cambridge is broken up into different squares. So you have Kendall Square, you have Central Square, everyone knows Harvard Square, Inman Square, Porter Square. Each kind of has its own special qualities. Harvard being one of the main squares that everybody knows, has all the sports bars, farm-to-table restaurants, kind of specialty shops, bistros, and coffee shops. Most of the squares also have their own farmers market, which is open year-round. That's where I get my favorite hot sauce, Alex's Ugly Sauce. Be on the lookout for it. Well, Harvard Square gets really most of the attention. The other squares are worth your time as well. So let's start with Kendall Square. You kind of need to know what is what and where's where. Since Cambridge and all of Boston is old for the United States standard, let's kind of talk about the oldest brewery and restaurant in the city. And that's the Cambridge Brewery Company. It's like a well-oiled machine. I love it there. They produce a range of, pretty crowd-pleasing beers in different styles, ambers, porters, English style ales. You get some unusual brews like a corn lager and a gin barrel aged sour with cucumber. I mean, the setting is great. I mean, it's perfect for large groups. And if you're looking to try like different styles, like from a single producer, I mean, CBC is the place to go. You can, enjoy a sampling inside of all the different beers with a view of the brewing tanks or, out on the front patio. I mean, it's upscale pub fare is kind of like amazing and like it keeps me coming back. So if you see me there, come over and say hello. I promise I'm super nice and I would love to say hi. But yeah, moving on. Central Square is a great place to go out at night. There are tons of restaurants, including, huge variety of global cuisine, where, for me, that was important because I lived overseas for a number of years while I was working in the footwear industry. And I mean, you can't get this type of food in other places. I mean, it's also got diverse nightlife, it's got live music and dance clubs. It's kind of awesome. And shockingly, it was almost completely destroyed during the 1950s when, town officials planned to build, of all things, an 8-line highway. But it was spared from demolition, and it was one of those things where for a while, it wasn't great. It suffered through increasing crime rates in the 70s and 80s, but now it's kind of that thriving center of everything. And it really does boast a lot of different trendy coffee shops, and, it's where a lot of young professionals are because they work nearby in a lot of the tech startups. While there's still some grit left behind, that's thanks largely due to that unpolished type of authenticity. I mean, that's kind of precisely what makes this place so appealing, is it's not perfect. If you want to see one of my favorite places, just head over to Miracle of Science Bar and Grill. This is kind of geek chic bar where its kind of claim to fame is on its periodic table chalkboard that's hanging on the wall behind the bar. It gives this place like a bit of a quirky charm. You got menu items that are kind of like color coded into the different groups. So you have sandwiches, quesadillas, appetizers, desserts, and skewers. And it's kind of like organized as if it was like the periodic table. It's got a good rotating beer list that features, some local favorites and smaller community brews. And it just kind of draws that crowd of, computer wonks, scientists, artists, and let's be honest, nerdy guys in real estate too. But moving on, let's talk a little bit about Inman Square. This is where I'd live in Cambridge if I did it all over again, honestly. It's a bit of a walk from the Red Line, which keeps it feeling very local. And there are a ton of good restaurants and coffee shops. It's just one of those things where being off the T's beaten path is something of a hidden gem. So unlike the city's more famous squares, Harvard Square, Central Square, or Kendall Square, you can't really get there directly by subway, but you got the buses that pass through. At the junction of Cambridge and Hampshire Streets, you have a lot of, culturally diverse East Cambridge neighborhoods. That's kind of like a treasure trove of multicolored storefronts and restaurants. Right now, it's home to a lot of professionals, working people, and students from, obviously MIT and Harvard. But what there is also is a strong Brazilian and Portuguese influence. So the neighborhood, it definitely has this really vibrant flair. And you guessed right, I'm going to tell you about another place to eat. How can you pick where you might want to live if you don't know what there is around you to eat? Honestly, I don't get people's priorities sometimes. But let's go right to it. S&S Restaurant and Deli. I grew up in New York, and I've always enjoyed a good deli. So for me, this was huge. And this place is an Inman Square institution, and it's pretty much always crowded. So once you taste the food, you'll know why. S&S is the closest thing to a New York style deli in any of Boston. Fun fact, in 1919, Mott Elstein welcomed the first customers to her Cambridge deli by encouraging them to S&S, which is, a Yiddish phrase for eat and eat, inspiring the name for what became now today S&S, which, it's expanded a lot since then. But here's the awesome part, and this is what I love. Someone from the family still shows up every day to run the bustling place. I mean, the menu includes traditional dishes from, my favorite Reuben. It's piled with extra lean corned beef, and it's got the marble rye, and, it's got that, thick New York style potato niche, and it's got, matzo ball soups. I mean, this should be your first stop when checking out Inman Square. Hands down, you need to stop there first. Like you can't not. But lastly, let's go to Porter Square. This place is crawling with students. You have the lesser known Lesley University is headquartered here. You also have Harvard Law School isn't terribly far away. And, you know, you get a lot of young professionals because, you know, Porter Square is dense with like goods and services. You know, they range from, you know, the predictable things like the obvious coffee shop, the supermarket, the gym, to the not so much. Like the thing that I really like is the Japantown, and it's this mall and food court. It has a ton of stuff. I mean, you even have like you know, kind of cool vegan shoe boutique that's there. There's a live music venue that, you know, pretty much obnoxiously prides itself on the fact that it has no cover shows. But if I'm honest, it's not my favorite part of Cambridge, but it's really nothing to complain about either. It's just, it's okay. Again, this is just my experience, folks. So like, you know, you're gonna have to make your own decisions about what you think. But, you know, enough talk about squares, honestly, or anything like that. Let's get jumping into the fifth thing that you need to know about moving to Cambridge. That's really just how quick and easy it is. So if you want to like get to Boston, it's fast. The Charles River is what separates obviously Cambridge and Boston. And with Cambridge having multiple T-stops throughout the city, it's just a quick 20-minute train ride to get downtown Boston. And if you're willing to brave the traffic, it's only an 11-minute car ride for most areas in Cambridge. So that's kind of like the big thing to know is like you have access to really everything, and it makes it pretty easy. For number 6, Cambridge is called the world's intellectual capital, and that is not just because of the university. It also gives residents access to some of the best school systems in Massachusetts. And, you know, there's top-rated private schools as well as public, with the average student to teacher ratio being 10-1, and we have a 97% rate of students graduating high school. It's easy to understand why Cambridge received that title. In addition, Cambridge also has a very low crime rate overall. In fact, it's 27% lower than the national average. With great schools and the low crime rate, it's just a great place for young families to call home. And well, lastly, or the 7th thing you really want to know, it's basically Cambridge is a nerd paradise. So if you love NPR, who doesn't, right? Cambridge was home to Tom and Ray Magliozzi, aka Click and Clack, the Tappert brothers. They used to give the city a shout out in each episode of Car Talk, their weekly radio show that was broadcast on, where else? NPR. You want to see cool stuff like holograms and robots, or, you know, geeky college memorabilia, wild beavers, and what exactly is a brass rat. You know, you're going to find out within, you know, the hallowed halls of the MIT Museum. And my favorite thing ever, the Middle East restaurant and nightclub. I've gone to countless shows there over the years. Some of my favorite bands have played there, you know, pretty religiously as they've grown a national audience. It's the place to see music, especially if you like underground indie or like hardcore and metal. It's just one of those things where like, if you are a nerdy person, if you are a person that enjoys, you know, the theater, the arts, you know, just intellectuals, I mean, it's crazy to see who you bump into. I mean, I can't tell you the number of times that I've bumped into people like Cornell West. I mean, it's just amazing. So I hope I haven't rambled too much today, and that's the big thing. And, you know, so, I mean, it's been fun talking about the 7 reasons that made me change my mind about Cambridge. And I have to say that, you know, I'm a fan. And if you're thinking about this part of the city, I hope this video has been helpful. If it has been helpful, please leave a comment below letting me know that. Or if you have a suggestion, comment that too. But again, you've got to reach out to us to find that perfect area that maybe you're thinking about living in or want to go see. In order to do that, you've got to give us a call, shoot us a text, send us an email, or even send Paul Revere. However you want to get a hold of us, we got your back when you're moving to Boston or any of its suburbs, like Cambridge. And until the next video, I'll catch y'all later.